All right, so in this video, we want to look at the following concepts. What is an algorithm? What's pseudocode? What are code comments, and how do we go about writing those comments in our code? Basic arithmetic operations within C++, and also we'll look at the concepts and ideas behind type conversion and integer division. So let's talk a little bit about what an algorithm is. An algorithm is just simply a set of ordered instructions that produces a desired result. You could also think about an algorithm as just being a recipe for doing something. So we can think about a recipe for making cereal. Getting the cereal, getting a bowl, getting the milk, pouring the cereal into the bowl, pouring the milk onto the cereal, getting a spoon, and then eating the cereal. And that's a very basic algorithm, but hopefully you get the idea of what we're looking at here. And it turns out that in program development, this is where you'll spend a lot of your time, is devising the algorithm to solve some particular problem. You may be trying to figure out the shortest path between 2 points, or maybe how to navigate through a maze and get a proper solution there, and the most efficient way to navigate through a maze. So early on, whenever you're learning how to program, you are going to spend a lot of time trying to figure out the syntax and maybe solving different errors that pop up from the way you've coded something. But later on, once you become proficient at a particular programming language, where you'll spend most of your time is in designing and developing the algorithm before you actually implement that algorithm in a specific language. So algorithms are, language independent, doesn't really matter. We can just work it out on a sheet of paper before we actually go and start coding something up. So that's the basic idea behind an algorithm, set of ordered instructions that produces a desired result, or we could simply just say a recipe. Okay, so for the other topics that we're going to be looking at in this video, comments, pseudocode, basic arithmetic operations, type conversion, and integer division, we'll look at as we solve this particular problem here. So this is the problem statement we have. It says we want to create a program that displays the average scores from Metacritic's Metascore and Rotten Tomatoes Tomatometer for a particular movie. The average score must be displayed on a 10-point scale. The movie title and scores will be inputted by the user. So this is our problem statement, our basic requirement specifications for this program. And based off of that, we're going to devise an algorithm, and then we'll implement the actual C++ code. So let's get started. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with program 3. So we'll come here to File, New, and then come across here to C++ Project, left click, and we'll name this project Program 3 since this is our third program. Under project type, you can leave it as empty project, toolchains, make sure MinGW GCC is selected, and then click on Finish. Okay, so we've got our Program 3 project folder. You can right click on that, then go here to New, and then left click on Source File. So we want to create a C++ source file, and we'll just name it program3.cpp. And then click on Finish. Okay, so now we have our Program 3 source file, and we're ready to start typing in some things here. So the first thing that I'm going to do is paste in our problem statement. You won't be able to do this, but maybe you can type in a brief summary or just a little bit of text here, because I'm going to show you how to create a comment in Eclipse. I'm going to go ahead and paste in our problem statement that we saw before. And then I'm going to select all this text here and then hit Control, while holding down the Control key, hit the /. And that creates a comment out of all this text here. Okay, so what exactly is a comment? A comment is just simply text within our source code file that we as humans, developers, other people that may be looking at the code can read, but it's going to be ignored by the compiler. So when we go and compile program3.cpp, any line that starts with this // is going to be ignored. It's not going to try to compile that into some machine code. So what do you traditionally find in comments? You'll usually find maybe a description of the program, what it does, maybe the author, the date that it was created originally, maybe the last date that it was modified. And also you'll find comments associated with certain portions of the code, maybe explaining why a particular calculation was used or a particular factor was used in a calculation. that maybe is outside the norm. But it's not going to be a comment explaining, every single line of C++ code and what it does. The code itself should be self-documenting, so someone that understands how to write a particular program in a particular language would need to have an explanation of the syntax, but they may need an explanation of why a particular calculation was used or how the algorithm may work in general. So that's the basic idea behind comments. It's just some sort of text within our program source file that's for us, providing maybe a description or further explanation of something, and it's going to be ignored by the compiler. Okay, so let's take a look back at the problem statement and try to devise a basic algorithm for our program. So we need to create a program that displays the average scores from Metacritic's Metascore, Rotten Tomatoes Tomato Meter for a particular movie. The average score must be displayed on a 10-point scale, and the movie title and scores will be inputted by the user. So traditionally, whenever we first start analyzing a problem statement or some sort of requirement specifications for a program, is to figure out the inputs that we're going to have. So it looks like we have 3 different pieces of information that need to be inputted. One is the movie title, and the other 2 are the scores, one from Metacritic's, the Metascore, and another one from Rotten Tomatoes Tomato Meter. So once we have that information, then we can calculate the average score, and we may also have to condition that score so that it fits on a 10-point scale. We'll see what Metascore and Tomato Meter scores give to us, and then from there we can worry about our scaling. Alright, so now let's look at trying to just sketch out the basic algorithm without actually writing any code. So we'll come here and say, well, the first thing maybe we need to do is get the name of the movie. And then we also need to get the Metascore. So I'll say get Metascore. And then we need to get the other score. So get the Tomato Meter score. And then we'll get the average, or we'll calculate the average. So we need to get the average of those 2 scores. And then we may need to do some rescaling. So we'll just say rescale average. And then once we rescale the average, we're ready to actually display the new average, or display it. So we'll just say display the result of our calculations, maybe. And that's basically it. So all this stuff here is a description of our algorithm without actually writing any C++ code. And what we call this is pseudocode. So oftentimes whenever you're in early code development, you want to just sketch out what you want to do without actually writing any specific code. So this just gets you thinking about the problem. Okay, so now that we have our pseudocode in place, let's go ahead and start actually writing some C++ code. So we'll go here below the problem statement and put in our pound include statement. So pound include IOStream is going to be the first one that we include so that we have support for getting input from the keyboard and also doing output to the screen. We want to have support for the string data type, so let's include string. And let's also do the using namespace standard, save us a few keystrokes. And now we're ready to start typing in the main function. So int main open paren close paren, and then we'll put an open brace here and then come down below and put a close brace. So now inside of this main function we still have all of our pseudocode, and I'm going to just tab the pseudocode over. Basically, anytime we have an open brace, close brace, anything inside of that should be coming over one level of indentation. So I'm just using the tab key to tab all this over. Okay, what we're going to do is start filling in the blanks here, filling in this section below each of the comments. So in order to get the name of the movie, we're going to actually prompt the user of this program to input the movie name. So the first thing we need to do is actually declare a variable that's going to be able to hold the name of the movie. So I'm going to just introduce a data type of string, or variable of type string, and we'll call it movie, and we'll set it to the empty string. Okay, and then we'll display to the user using our cout and ask them what is the name of the movie. Okay, and we can put a colon space \n for new line character, and then a semicolon at the end here. Okay, so now that we have the prompt for the user to enter in the name of the movie, we need to be able to read in input from the keyboard. So usually what we've done is just use cin and then the extraction operator and then specify the name of the variable where we want to store that input. Unfortunately, this cin and then the extraction operator is only going to get the first word of the movie. So if it's a multi-word movie title, we're only going to get the first word. So we need something else besides what we have here. And we can make use of a function called the getLine function, and that will actually get an entire line. So what we have to do is specify two arguments to this function. So the first argument is going to be where we're getting it from. So we're going to be getting it from the character input stream or the keyboard, so we can just say cin. And then where do we want to store it to? So that's the second argument. So the second argument is going to be movie. That's the variable that we've declared previously, and we want to store whatever the name of the movie is into that particular variable name. All right, so that's pretty basic. This is our first time that we've actually called a function. So basically, in terms of calling a function to make use of it, you specify the name, and if they have any arguments that have to be specified, those are specified within the parentheses here. Okay, so we've got basically all the code that we need to get the name of the movie. And now we'll come down here and get the metascore. So the metascore is going to be an integer value. So we'll just declare an integer variable, int, and we'll just say metascore is the name of the variable, and we'll initialize that to 0. And then we'll have some output to the user. So cout and then the insertion operator. And we'll say what is the metascore rating for, and then we'll come in here and use our insertion operator, use our variable called movie, and then maybe question mark /n for a new line character. Okay, so this is just a prompt that we're going to have for them to input the rating from metascore. And then once they've done that, we can then read in that value. We can go back to using our cin in this case, since it's just a single value. It's not going to have any spaces or multiple words or anything like that. So we just type in metascore here. Okay. And it's going to be very similar down here for the tomato meter score. So it's almost the same exact lines. We'll just change up the variable name and a little bit on the string literal that we're going to have there. So we'll say int tomato meter, and we'll assign that to 0. And then we'll do cout, use the insertion operator, and we'll say what is the tomato, let's capitalize that, tomato meter rating for, and then we'll use movie, and then we'll put in a question mark /n for the new line character and a semicolon. And then we'll actually read in a value from the keyboard, so cin, extraction operator, and then we'll use our variable tomato meter. And that's basically it. So at this point in time, we've got the input for the name of the movie, we've got the score from, or the rating from Metascore, and we also have the rating from Tomato Meter. So we've got our input, and now we can actually go in and calculate our average.